Before we get started, I just want to quickly introduce my discipline, which is art history. It's not super well known, so it's always worth saying a few words or two about it. We combine historical and critical methods of study into art, visual culture, which is every bit as broad as it sounds. It's as broad as human art, which is broad as humanity. We look at different periods, different regions, from prehistory to the present. We have all kinds of tools and perspectives and things. And our department has a strong commitment to a global art history focus as well. And that's where we think about connections and frameworks, concepts of art, visual culture, and history in a bigger context than is usually the case. And the thing is, people will say, well, why study art history? What's the value in that? And it's, if you look around the world today, even the last few, in your own lifetimes, those of you who are thinking about applying to perhaps the art history program, think how much more visual the world has gotten in just the last 10 years, let alone the last 20, 30, 40. And as the world becomes more and more visually oriented, the ability to read images gets more valuable too. So our programs start with broad surveys of world art history and architectural history, visual culture, and they get deeper and more focused as you go along, and that lets students cultivate, their own sort of areas of interest within the program. We have a MA program as well with thesis and non-thesis options. We can offer a curatorial studies diploma as an add-on fairly easily. And we have lots of opportunities to develop outside of the classroom. One of the big advantages to being in Ottawa is our capital advantage. We have access to our galleries, museums, cultural institutions, and we use these things. We have a practicum program where students can do, research or work in an institution for credit. But we're not here to just listen to me. What I want to do is, at this point, introduce one of my students, one of my former students, and one of our students in Carleton Art History. And so without further ado, let's meet Gabriela.
Hi.
Hi, sorry for the long preamble and then just kind of dropping you in like that. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Let's get started with a question here, and it's a big question. What made you decide to choose Carleton in the first place?
Okay, so first of all, I was in the sciences all of my high school life, so choosing art history was a bit of a leap. But what I did was I went to an exhibition in Toronto where a bunch of university representatives showed up, and then I got to talk to them, and then I narrowed down my decision. And then I visited the campuses, which I think is very important to anyone who's considering applying to university, to get a better feel of what it's like actually attending that university. And when I came to Carleton, I really liked it. It just felt like a nice community to be in. And then the professors I talked to were really nice, and I was just like, this seems like the place to study. And like you mentioned, there are a bunch of galleries here as well, and Carleton has a gallery right in our building. So it just made sense to come study art history at Carleton.
I see. That sounds, so a couple of questions about that. How did you find, I think I might be having even a little bit of a time lag problem. So if I seem like I'm interrupting you, just shush me. Okay. How did you find coming over from science into the study of art history?
Not as challenging as I thought. I did take one classical civilizations class in high school in my grade 12 year, but I've always somewhat been involved in the arts, just traveling and diversing myself into it. Obviously, I can't say I had the same knowledge and the background as some of my other friends in my field, but I think also just talking to them and studying with them, having little study groups before exams did help.
Interesting. And before I ask the next question, can you let our listeners know what year are you in this year?
I'm in third year.
Okay, you're in your third year. So up to this point, what would you say is the thing that you're proudest of that you've done during your degree so far?
Ooh,
that's a tricky one.
Yeah, a lot of things. I think, well, we were supposed to go to Rome in May, so that was something I was very proud of, but obviously that got canceled because of COVID, which is very unfortunate. But I think another thing that I'm proud of is attending art events and then seeing everyone involved in the art field and being surrounded with people that appreciate the arts as well. I think that makes me feel really proud.
That's no, that's really sort of nice to hear, especially since you've this is was kind of a change for you to come over to here. So, what are some of your favorite courses? What are some because the students who are listening to this are going to be interested also in hearing about your academic experiences.
Yes.
So what are some of your favorite courses?
So I'm currently, well, I had my last class today, enrolled in an art history workshop. And that was very different from the other art history courses in the way it was taught, because we got to explore a little bit of what we could do outside of our field once we already graduate or are looking into a master's program. We also got to talk to different curators or people that are working in galleries, and there have been like past Carleton alumni, which was very interesting because it felt more personal. There's only, I think only about 15 people in the class. So it was very one-on-one with the professor as well as all of the people that were invited to talk in the class. And then I've had so many different classes that I've taken from my first to my third year that have all made a different impact on how I view art history, and just changes every year.
It's hard. It can be hard to pick just one, eh?
Yes.
Developed over. What do you like to look at or think about?
So you cut out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my connection seems to be a bit wonky. Is there an area of art that you're particularly interested in? An area. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
This is. Oh, good. I was just asking if there was an area of art that you've studied that you liked in particular.
I really like Italian art. That's one of the Renaissance, one of the reasons I decided to study art, but I'm sort of drifting into like Italian contemporary art. Also Islamic art was very fascinating. I took that class with you. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot to take in, but
it's a fun class to teach.
Yes.
I didn't set that up in advance. I didn't set that plug up in advance. That was just so. Looking back over the time you've been in art history with us, what are some of the skills that you would say that you've developed? What are some of the things that you've learned?
Definitely getting
Very
more involved.
broad.
Yeah, I'm getting like making contacts, I guess, with people, not only just with professors or attending different meetings, but with the people like in my class as well. I think that's very important because it's like you teach yourself different skills through that, just working, multitasking in a weird way, just trying to stay on top of everything that's been happening. It's a busy schedule with learning. I worked my first year, so I had to make sure I was staying on track with all my assignments, keeping up with the readings and everything. And then with COVID, just switching everything, like how I learned, because I like to be in the class setting myself to pay attention to the professor. So that's been a bit challenging this year with being at home. But I think that's one of the skills that I've learned, just changing my new habits and concentrating differently.
Yeah, it has been a challenging year for all of us, and hopefully it's something that will be changing before too long. Could you maybe let our listeners know sort of what your term looks like? Like what classes, what courses are you taking, say this term as a third year student?
Right, so I'm currently enrolled in 5 classes. All of them are art history. I took some as electives or just mandatory courses. I'm taking 2 second-year courses, which one of them is the art history workshop, which is Art Live, and then I'm taking an Italian Renaissance course. Fun. And then I'm taking history and methods of art and architecture, which is we like dive into different themes that are looked up on art history, which is really interesting because it gets you thinking about just different perspectives that you don't necessarily touch on in every single class, because obviously you can't teach everything in one semester. And then I'm taking a contemporary arts class, which deals with more like the present world and issues and how we can work on them in our art history field. I think that's all of them.
Well, that sounds like a very interesting semester. So looking ahead, where do you hope this degree takes you? Like, what are some of the plans? And I'm not saying what are you going to do, in 2 years' time, but what are some of the ideas you may have in mind for down the road as an art historian?
Yeah, I definitely want to go into a master's program, hopefully at Carleton. That would be great. And then we'll see from there. I'm hoping to go into curatorial studies. I really enjoyed that from what I've learned throughout my degree. Because obviously at the start, I was like, I like art history. I guess we'll see where that takes me. But right now, trying to graduate and then my master's.
Well, it's the program will certainly will prepare you for that. So is that mainly what you're doing for the for your next for your future preparations?
Yes.
Just getting ready for your master's?
Yeah.
Not just. It sounds like
that, and then obviously trying to look for either internships or just immersing myself more into the field.
Mm-hmm. And is it museum work ultimately? If everything worked out the way you hope it does, is it a museum type work that you would like to wind up in, curatorial work?
Eventually, yes, that, or like some sort of educational, but in the museum setting, with like younger generations to like, I guess, not train them, but get them more involved in our world.
I see it. No, that is always a challenge. Is there anything that you would like to say if you imagine yourself thinking about going to university? Right. Is there anything you wish, say, maybe a third-year student might have said to you? Something to think about. Sorry to spring that on you. It just occurred to me, and I thought, we have some of their ears here, so now's your chance to maybe give them a message.
I'm definitely stealing this from one of my professors, but like, don't be afraid of failure. Obviously, don't fail your classes, but don't let that affect how you see yourself. I'm definitely put too much pressure on myself sometimes. I'm like, oh, like, why didn't that work out? And then if I concentrate on all like the negatives, I'm never gonna achieve anything. So definitely just keep pushing yourself and like, don't let one bad thing get in the way of everything.
No, that's a great answer, and I think that's also the last of my questions. I don't have anything to follow up to that.